to us and introduce Nick
All right.
Voterro. Raymond, thanks again, and we will see you next week. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. And this is Nick Voterro, guys. He's from the city of Albuquerque, and he is a civic engagement coordinator. Can you tell us, say hello, and let us maybe know what that is, Nick, and what's going on with you? Thanks for coming in, by the way.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Sean. So civic engagement coordinator. What is that? Civic engagement is one of those broad terms. Our office is a new office here in the city of Albuquerque, and we were really started by this administration to create pathways for action, create pathways for opportunity for every resident in our community. Albuquerque is one of those places, you know, we're a real, I think, American city. We have a strong indigenous and, you know, Native and Pueblo community here. We have, a lot of, Spanish and European influence here. We are a community. We are a really kind of multicultural community, and our history has been one of collaboration and one of kind of community coming together. But, you know, this administration really wanted to turn city government inside out, really wanted to create, because, where does government get its power? It gets its power from the people in the community that it governs. And we wanted to create and formalize those pathways to action for residents to play a role in the programming that the city provides, to make connections and have conversations with decision makers, and also as kind of a pathway to employment, explore careers, or network within the city. So, this is it's a way to bring residents into the work that we do. It's a way for government not to be, the other or the them or the they. It's something that we're all a part of. And specifically for Wings, I think it's a great opportunity for people to, people who are reintegrating or young people who are looking to develop their resume, make connections professionally. It's a great way for folks to crack into that industry, to get connected with people who are doing work that is meaningful to them, and start building that foundation for a career in public service or in service to the community.
Thank you. That was a lot. But I tend to agree. I moved here from San Francisco last year, and that's a big international diverse city. Yeah. But I see a lot of that going on here in Albuquerque.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have so many people across town, and we really wanted to create a way for people. We're a city of neighborhoods, and we really want people to have opportunities to make their neighborhood and the space where they're living.
That's how San Francisco is. It's your neighborhood, and you're either proud of it or you move away from it. But
exactly. Well, we don't want people to move away from it. We want to keep people here. We want people to invest in their communities, and we want to give people a way in their neighborhood to really make their home something special and something unique.
So I did a little research on Nick today, guys. I, Googled his name and read some of his profiles. But you've done a lot since college. He's volunteered for, I didn't list all the organizations, but I know you were a youth field organizer. I wanted to ask you about Free the Future. You were the founder, director there. Community outreach coordinator for New Mexico Child Advocacy Networks. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. And and the list goes on. These are just a few, but maybe you can tell us what Free the Future is. That one.
Well, so, that's a local nonprofit here. It's still something that I've done. It was always unpaid. It always has been. I think at least for the future will be. But, we are working on some new projects. Our old projects, I think that's what kind of got my foot in the door with the city. Our big project was the two-way street newspaper. So it was an application of the street newspaper model right here in Albuquerque.
Okay.
And for those who are not familiar with it, street newspapers are, community-based publications.
Street sheets, kind of? Is that another name for them?
Yeah, sometimes sometimes they're called street sheets, but like it's it's like a local newspaper. It's put together. We did it all volunteer-based. Not all of them have that kind of volunteer model, but the publications are produced for street vendors, ways for people to have, access to entrepreneurship and employment without the barriers to employment. So these vendors could go out and, using their First Amendment rights and, leaning on the First Amendment, add value to the panhandling interaction. People could solicit donations for their copies of the newspaper, and have that liquid income that for many people is, it's hard to get it if you
right.
you
Well,
you
I
don't
mean,
have-
that's a legal way. At least they could be trying to push something else, and I'd rather have them have that newspaper, that newsletter.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's a much better piece of, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know what you're saying, but yeah, you're right. That's
Give them a hustle. That's actually doing some good, right?
yeah. Well, and it was hyper local. It talked about local, really local issues, stuff that you don't get with
Sure.
national publications.
Yeah.
And it really, and it wasn't just the vending. I think that the interactions that our street vendors had with people in the community, you start bridging that gap between people. So that's where we went initially with that, and eventually I think we'll get a Web3 project off the ground as kind of a spiritual successor.
Now, I don't know what a Web3 project is. Can you tell me what that is?
Web3 is just kind of where people are imagining where the internet will go. So Web 1 was read. You could post things on the internet. Web 2 is social media, is read write. Web 3 is kind of read write own, is how a lot of people.
Is that the next generation for the internet, I guess? Or?
But potentially, I think that what we see in technology and also what we tried to do, we were really trying to create opportunity for folks, particularly the more vulnerable folks in our communities. But the street newspaper model is a little bit outdated. Today we have a need for kind of a cashless exchange, and
Venmo, Cash App, all
right.
that stuff's everybody's got it now. Almost everybody under 40 probably has one.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and we're working on a platform to help get people, people who are reintegrating, people who are not connected with their community. The internet has never been a tool to connect people with the community. It's a great way to connect people with topics and interests, but there's this thing in social sciences we call the self-selection bias. And in short, it's people are not, we have a wealth of information at our fingertips with the internet, but not all of that information is accessible to us. We have to know what to enter into the Google search bar or what to enter into the URL field. So really the internet is great at providing information that reinforces our biases. But what we're hoping to do is really kind of leverage a digital commons to get people connected and create those kind of pathways for economic opportunity, pathways for advocacy, and just a way to bring people together in our physical space. That technology, we're all on our phones, we're all in our houses.
Oh, I mean, you walk around, and I was in prison when I got out. Everybody's staring like this. What happened to the world?
That's like
I was only gone 4 years, and I come out, and they're just like this. I mean, everybody.
It's like an episode of the Twilight Zone,
Yeah, it was like one of those future movies where they're all marching down,
Right? Yeah. It's like a Wall-E future.
Yeah.
Everyone's in the chair and in front of their screen. No, I hear that, and yeah. So that's what we're trying to do there. But the work with the city is really, it's creative. It's keeping me busy. Gives me an opportunity to connect with not just City of Albuquerque departments, but organizations all across town, Wings for Life being one of them.
Yeah.
Just ways for people to get connected with their space, with their community. Volunteering is one of those things. It's hard to close the loops on data collection and volunteering. It's hard to volunteering. You might volunteer with one organization, and you can get your hours verified there, but there's a fragmentation in volunteering. Everyone kind of has their own system of doing things, and that's what we're trying to address with the city is creating a single pathway to access. If you want to get involved with city departments, you only have to complete the forms one time. You don't have to complete the forms 10 different times to volunteer with 10 different departments. It's a way to track your hours across organizations.
It's a way to network too and get to know the people in your community.
Absolutely.
And know people you never thought you would ever cross paths with before, and you might find you got something in common with them, right?
Well, that's the truth. It's when you're volunteering, you're there, you're making connections. If you're applying for a job where you're volunteering, people recognize your face, they recognize your name, you have those connections, and you can let someone know, like, hey, I'm dropping in an application, you should put in a good word for me. Those human interactions are really what can help translate the informal to the formal, and that's what we're hoping to do with volunteering in the city. But we want it to be a volunteer. We want to contribute to a volunteer resume. We want, students who don't have potentially professional experience. We want them to be tracking their experience on the site, exporting volunteer resumes, and we really want to create we want to formalize volunteerism in the pathway to employment for folks who are reintegrating into the community, young people who are just getting started.
You got to give a little to get a little, and
you do.
Us returning citizens, we're not just going to get handed it, guys. We actually kind of got to work a little harder than the next one. But volunteering is a great way to do that. You build your character yourself. You know what I mean? You walk away at the end of the day knowing you did a little bit of good for the world, instead of a little bit good for you. Maybe you give something back, and if you get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The feeling that I see the smile on your face.
Well, it reminds, it's part of this, my favorite, way to conceptualize philanthropy, right? So like a lot of people think of philanthropy and they think of it as giving. But the industrialists, Carnegie and Rockefeller, their approach to philanthropy was that, they started the OpenStack library system. And the OpenStack library system was an asset to the community. It was a way where, previously you had to know, like the self-selection bias on the internet, you had to know what book to ask for. And the librarian would then go back and get the book for you and bring it to you. But the OpenStack library system was a way for people who wanted to contribute their own labor and, contribute something themselves to their own improvement. And it created that, an opportunity for education that anyone could access as long as they were willing to put in that effort. That's what we're trying to do with creating this asset for volunteerism in the community.
And I know Ann is trying to sneak in here for a minute.
Well, I wanted to say
and now I'll get to some of the comments, guys.
To let you know that we have had so many incredible volunteers that have come through that site.
That's great.
And so I want to plug that opportunity that the city offers, because the gentleman now who has put together all of our Zoom programming, Facebook programming, everything else came through one volunteer. In fact, I just nominated him as Volunteer of the Month. We have another young man from the academy here, a private school here in Albuquerque, that's been helping us with computers. He will be nominated next. And we have had so many people, and the importance of volunteering, because there's no way that I can do this job, or Sean, or anybody can do this all by ourselves. It takes the whole team effort. And when we get our volunteers, they bring their gifts, their skills, and what they have learned in life to the table. And whether it's been through life in prison, I haven't had that experience, so I can't help somebody else, but Sean certainly can. So together, all of us volunteering can make all that difference. So I wanted to put in a plug for that. I wanted to say how wonderful our volunteer site is. And if you're listening anywhere else, volunteer. I cannot tell you how many recommendations that I've written for kids in high school trying to get into college. People, they call me, can you use me as a reference? Of course. But they better ask me, because if they've just come in once and I don't really know them, then I'm the worst person to recommend them, because I can say, I don't remember who they are. But when you get to know somebody in a nonprofit or any organization where you're trying to help, that that recognition of being a volunteer and giving back to the community is one of the greatest things that any employer is going to look for. And so I would highly recommend that you do that. And so I just wanted to tell you how grateful we are and what incredible volunteers we've gotten from the site. So I just wanted to put in that plug. There you go.
And for those of you who watch on Federal Prison Talk, I have another channel that's running here too. A lot of them are on federal pretrial, waiting to get sentenced. Not this year, next year. It could be a few years until you get sentenced. Volunteering is going to look so good for the judge for your sentencing day, but it's going to build your character, and it'll change you along the way, so you can take accountability for what you did and maybe just turn your whole life around. That's, if you watch my channel, you know that's what I did. And my advice is try to turn it around now before you go to prison. Don't wait till you get there. Don't wait till you get out of prison. You start today. And if you're not in Albuquerque, like we have Sean Whelan in Ireland. He's in Dublin, Ireland, and he watches the show.
Wow.
He says, "What's up, Sean? Just a quick mate. Hope you well. some Irish word, TEI, but I should know what that is. This guy is Go Kings 08. He said, hey, he's been a regular here, but and a few of them that are not on here anymore, but went away. But if you guys have questions or comments, please feel free. And Nick, are we finished with the volunteering? I had a few other topics, but
let's jump into the volunteering stuff. Just to wrap up the volunteer stuff. I will say that our platform, the One ABQ Volunteers platform, it's available if you are listening here locally. Any organization in Bernalillo or immediately adjacent counties can use it. Of course, if you have questions about volunteer coordination or setting up a volunteer program in your area, also happy to answer questions on that. But yeah, let's jump into the questions.
I know a lot of topics in the local news in Albuquerque here is, first one I wanted to get to is help for returning citizens. Yeah. Any future plans or what's going on for what a returning citizen is, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But we have to earn that word citizen.
Yeah,
I think you have to earn that, because some people, it's a revolving door. They're going to go right back. But the ones that don't want to go back and they want to make a difference, change, how can we help them?
Yeah, well, if we want to, I think that, people who are returning to the community, we have organizations all across our site that, they're always looking for, help with their programming, help with donations. Our site can be a great way to get connected with people who are reintegrating, with organizations that are providing services, and even if it's not a service directly for someone who's reintegrating, I think a lot of our social service programs help out adjacently for some of the challenges that folks encounter, so if you're interested in, some of the educational programming that we had at the city. I didn't realize that, when I was in school, like every docent at the Albuquerque Museum, at the Biopark, all these people providing tours and providing that education, they're all volunteers. All the organizations in Albuquerque that are providing some kind of social service, a lot of those organizations rely on volunteers to provide the level of service that they do. So
can someone with a felony charge get educational grants and scholarships and things for college?
So
or is that in their way?
Well, so I know that there are programs that specifically offer, scholarships for people, in particular life situations like that. And volunteering, that's a great way to build the resume if you're putting in an application for that. It's a great way to, get ahead of the pack for those kinds of applications. But yeah, like also just as a returning citizen, I think that the best thing you can do, is building those connections, getting reconnected, and doing it in a way that, that is helping others. I think that that's a great way to build an employment resume. Like you said, it's a confidence builder too.
Yeah,
I think
confidence, exactly.
When you're making those connections, when you're kind of just getting your feet wet, getting back into back on the horse, whatever you want to say, it's I think that volunteering is a really great way to kind of start low. You don't have to worry about having job experience. You don't have to worry about finding a job. Finding a job can be hard, but going out and doing something good in the community, that's super low barrier to entry. And even with the city programs, some of our city programs do require a background check, but we want to make those pathways possible. So even if we don't approve a blanket background check for volunteering at any of our offices, if you're interested in volunteering in your neighborhood, sign up, reach out. We'd love to get you connected with something that where we can place you so that you can start logging those hours and building those skills.
Times are changing for returning citizens, but we got to go out there and show the community too that we've changed, and volunteering is like one of the best ways to do it. Let them see you up front that you're changing, that you have changed, that you've turned it around, and then more and more doors will open for us. And we all got to put in the work, And you're leading with kindness. You're leading with, everyone can play a role. That's our philosophy. Everyone can play a role in, helping out people who need it, helping to address the challenges that our city is facing. We have so many things that homelessness, youth education. That's on the thing here. That's the next topic I wanted to talk about. Yeah, those are all things that we can. So I'm from San Francisco. I've only been here 8-9 months. What you guys think is a homeless problem? They have no clue. Coming from where I'm at, almost every suburb in the Bay Area, the suburbs are like what Albuquerque looks like for homelessness. If you go to the city of San Francisco, 20 blocks, 30 blocks, 40 blocks, tent after tent after tent, hypodermic needles, everything else you could think of on the ground, and just people and police not doing anything. Not that they don't want to. It's just so rampant. The city of San Francisco gives $187.50 the first of the month and the 15th of the month to anybody who goes down to the Human Services building and signs up. They give them $200 in food stamps. All these, nobody's going hungry out there, even though they have a sign that says "We'll work for food." Trust me, there's almost every neighborhood's got 5 or 10 charities giving out food, but it's crazy with the homelessness out there. So I see it out here, and I see 10, 12 years ago how it was starting. But the solutions, what do you do? And it's getting worse out here. Yeah. I can't go past a major stop, a red light on the way home without somebody standing on the island,
Yeah, it's definitely.
I lock my door, roll the window, or I try to just look straight ahead. It's not, and maybe but I can't. What am I supposed to do? Just get a whole pile of singles for every trip to work?
Well, you're talking to the right guy. I did the street newspaper, we had them doing that instead. So homelessness is an issue that's really close to my heart.
Right.
What's the future here for homelessness? What are the policy actions? You're asking that. It's such a, we're at this really important kind of time in our, as for those who are not familiar with kind of local Albuquerque politics on it, we just closed. There's a park in our downtown Wells Park neighborhood that was just closed down.
So they are going to close it. At first they were right. It was kind of back and forth.
Right. It is now officially closed. So it's.
Are there any people there though? Closing is one thing, and getting people out is another.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think all the people moved out. There's kind of there's a whole story to it. So when they decided to close the park, I think it was yesterday, that they closed it. But then the park staff went down and found that the sprinkler system had been completely redone. There was it's almost like an aqueduct system set up in this. just for people to wash their clothes and so the water was running and it was constantly
running.
Were
using it for showering and
exactly
and washing dishes and hands. I get it.
Well, and then they go in to fix the pipes and the water just flooded everywhere. So the park flooded. That could be one of the reasons why it is closed and there's no one there because it flooded out. But yeah, so we just closed that. The closure,
did they get motel vouchers? Did they get a shelter?
Yeah.
If they have 2 shopping carts full of stuff, are they allowed to take that to the shelter? What if they have a dog?
Yeah.
What about the ones with kids? It goes on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the city's Department of Family and Community Services, they've been, we didn't know that it was, it wasn't a surprise that the city was closing the park. We'd known for a few weeks. And the city has been sending caseworkers down to go get folks connected with, vouchers if they could find a place to stay.
A lot are mentally ill, a lot are on drugs, alcoholics. They're not all. Some are working homeless.
Right.
Which you don't hear much about them.
Yeah. But yeah, so we've had folks getting people connected with the resources that they need. I do know that a substantial number of those folks who were living out there are now seeking services in shelters. So that's a good thing. We do have a change here locally for safe outdoor spaces, which I don't know that they're going to continue receiving applications for those spaces.
I've seen some of those models work.
Yeah.
There's one in Mountain View, California that seems to be working. It's been about 3 years now, but it's monitored and it has a staff.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they almost patrol, but they don't do it in quite a police state way.
Right.
You have to, you got to do it with kindness, and it just takes the right staff to work there.
Yeah. Well, and so that's where the city, I think, is going with their safe outdoor spaces. Coronado Park, it was not policed. It was not, there was no security. There were no security measures. So the safe outdoor spaces is a step up from the kind of situation that it was
It
previously.
can work. It's worked in different communities too. There's places in California and in Portland has tried it. One area of Portland I heard it's working.
Yeah.
At other places it's been a disaster because it's not run right.
Well, and I think it's part of a comprehensive strategy, right? Where they have the safe outdoor spaces as kind of an interim kind of stopgap. It's part of the whole Gateway Center shift that they're making. So we're building a new kind of consolidated emergency housing center, and that will have some on-site resources for folks who need it. And that's a big difference from where we were previously. In Albuquerque, we had we had and still actually have just one shelter way out on the west side.
Right.
It's out of the city.
Out of sight, out of mind. I know, I get it. But that could be a good thing.
Well, but it made it really hard for people to access like the resources that they needed. It really, getting to the shelter took time, took energy. And then anything else you had to do in the day, if you're getting public assistance or if you're searching for a job, that would also take time in the day. It's a really hard situation when you have to, particularly in Albuquerque with all the sprawl that we have, for someone who's having trouble with their housing or employment or whatever it is, to kind of do all of those things and get everywhere they need to get in town. So
what scares me and worries me is I saw San Francisco before it went on crazy on homeless, but the crime that went up that followed with it as the homeless population became bigger and bigger and bigger. So I've had my windows broken on my car 2 times. Most people I know of, I'm gonna say 1 out of every 3 people in the San Francisco Bay Area has had their windows smashed. It used to be you don't keep anything in the car.
Right.
Now they go right for the trunk.
Oh,
They
man.
smash the window and open up the little hood, the little slats, and they go in the trunk because they know that's where you're keeping it.
yeah,
I see guys walking down the street trying every door handle. No, those are the nice ones. They're not going to break your window.
yeah.
I mean, it's so bad. People are just rolling down their windows at night. I take the car. My insurance will cover that. If you break the window, it doesn't cover it
Wow.
because of my deductible.
Yeah.
It's that bad. They're just leaving all their windows down at night. And Walgreens and CVS's of 30 something of them had to close out there because if you're still up to $950, it's just an infraction.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have that law thing here. Some places it's $600 you can still, and it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
It's this new, but so the crime is going to come, and I know Albuquerque already has its crime, but I don't have to worry about my windows being broken here. I hope they didn't give anybody ideas. I know they do steal cars, but.
Well, I've had a few people, a few people I know have had their, windows broken here in the last few months. It's definitely, crime is something that we also, as a city, it's something we saw kind of spike up during the pandemic, not necessarily like, when everything was closed down, it was like an uptick in commercial burglaries with all the shops closed, but yeah, like I think that what we saw, the impacts on the economy.
I think if you can find the solutions now before it gets worse, like these big cities like Detroit, Chicago, and all, you guys have Albuquerque has a chance to stop it.
Yeah,
but we gotta act now, and we gotta do some things. I don't have the answers either. So who does?
Well, and I think that I'm not an administration spokesperson, but I think that the plan is if someone wants to, get a hand up, help pick themselves back up, seek services, attempt to remedy their, whether it's like, breaking their housing situation or employment. I think Albuquerque wants to be the place where they can find their footing again and build a home and build a community. But if people aren't interested in, seeking services here, I think that our approach is, if you're not interested in seeking services, you can be here, but there's not really a place where you can stay overnight. So, I think people are going to be moving on. Yeah.
I got housing resources, low income housing. What does the city offer for that kind of stuff?
Well, so the city does have the the Affordable Housing Association and Affordable Housing Board and programs. The city offers vouchers for affordable housing, but I'd say that the most interesting work happening around housing in the city is happening with MIAC. the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so they have met with some international organizations and have really become enamored with this European model of affordable housing.
Okay.
And so the European model is one. So here, what we do is we have a voucher system. So people who are, and it's really for private industry, for people who have homes or apartments and want to rent them out. We have a voucher program to help pay them for the housing that that people need.
How does somebody apply for that?
So the wait list is tremendously long. It's I think
not surprised.
yeah,
but,
not surprising. But yeah, they have to apply for that the housing vouchers through the Albuquerque. I think it's the Affordable Housing Association, BHA.
Is the waiting list 1 year, 2 year, 5 year?
I think it's a 2 year. We were trying to get our Vista members connected with affordable housing because they're here, they're working, they're making less than minimum wage, but they're here for a term of service. We were trying to get them connected with housing that would work for them, but yeah, our housing situation it's slow and it's and as we know, housing and rent prices are just on their way up here. So
I'm seeing that.
So yeah, it's a tough model, but MIAC is looking into this European model where the city or the municipality they own the property. The governments own the properties, they maintain the properties, and then the affordable housing is provided as a public benefit exclusively through the public sector rather than subsidizing private ownership,
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the worst going to happen?
Well, and the folks from I think it was Lithuania Estonia or Lithuania who we were talking to who have these programs. It's not that they're against that kind of privatization that we love here in the United States. Their statement was just that they know better. They've tried it and it's already failed. So could be an interesting approach.
Trial and error. I mean, that's kind of what this country was built on, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the great experiment.
So the last thing I want to talk about is the buses.
Yeah.
So I know that in Albuquerque, it's free to ride the public bus.
Yeah.
And then they were going to stop it, I guess, this year after the pandemic. Now they're going to continue it maybe. But then there's been some problems, too, with the bus drivers.
Yeah. Well, so it's a pilot program right now. City Council approved. So the free fares program is because of it's a budget. They did it with the budget. So City Council planned for a 1 year, no fares collected budget for the transit system. And that'll let us see, whether it's a viable model here. And yeah, you're right. I think in some ways, affordable transit is the equitable solution. It makes getting around town a lot easier for folks.
Are my taxes going to go up though if they keep the free buses? That's going to be somebody's going to be concerned about that.
Well, and that's where you. So yeah, well, public transit I don't think it was a money making industry in the first place. Yeah, like they weren't making a profit off of running the buses. In fact, I think they were operating at a bit of a loss. But on your point with the bus drivers getting punched in the face, that's when you're letting people on the bus without a fare. That's one of those additional costs that you encounter. So we're looking at it this year.
I know they want to build a barrier now before.
Right, a screen to prevent the drivers from potentially getting attacked. We have with our transit department, Megan Holcomb, looking into that. She's doing the data analysis and the study for the 1 year so that we can understand, what the costs will be of this free fares program.
We got to protect our bus drivers.
Absolutely. But yeah, like the transit system, I'm glad you mentioned it because that's another one of our city programs where we involve people, and it's a way that we can, if you ride the bus, this year we have free fares, but for our bus volunteers, our transit system volunteers, they can ride the bus for free. So if you adopt a bus stop, one, it keeps your neighborhood more beautiful. Two,
I like that. Yeah.
It's a way to build those skills, log those hours toward, of your service to the community while you're waiting for the bus.
Okay.
And it's also, when free fares expires, guaranteed it's a free way here to ride the bus, even after the expiration of that program.
Anything on the drawing board for light rails?
Man, I think that the art project was initially designed to be something that would eventually could become light rail. I don't think that's I wish ARC could be a little bit more. I wish it could be electric or be something aside from just a bus system in the middle of the street. But it's a good first step. I'd love to see light rail, but I don't know that that's there yet.
That's about it for me, but I want to give you a chance, final words, message out there for everyone. Take it away.
Well, like on, we were talking about crime in Albuquerque a little bit earlier, and with folks who are looking to reintegrate or if you're just passionate about crime and public safety here in Albuquerque, I'll pitch city department volunteering opportunities, any opportunity I have. But yeah, APD, we're trying to hire officers. We have a huge deficit of officers. So volunteering with APD is a great way to explore the career as a possibility. Could be something that young folks are interested in. Yeah. But also, it's a way to help make Albuquerque's communities safer. We're looking for substation volunteers, folks to pitch in right in their neighborhood. We want to have resident points of contact at our substations so that everyone in that neighborhood is more inclined to use it. I don't like the idea of going into a substation because I don't really want to go in and talk to police officers. But if I was going in there and talking to my neighbor, I might be a little bit more inclined to use it.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're thinking there. It also supports community policing. So, we have a shortage of sworn officers and employees in APD. We're trying to recruit as best we can, but volunteers, you can step up and make your city safer and contribute to community policing by pitching in at the substations. Because when we have volunteers there, it can get our officers out from behind the desks and into their communities. That's a great way to step up. And if anyone has questions about like the city departments, ways to get involved, or our community partners like Wings for Life, who are using our site as a new touch point, way to engage the community, way to bring community members into your work. Happy to answer questions there too.
Have you heard of Neighborhood Watch, that program?
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah.
Is Albuquerque running anything like that?
So that's the next,
and then we'll get to Angie.
Yeah. That's the next item on my docket really, is to start connecting more with our neighborhood associations, because our volunteer platform, it's a way that neighborhood associations across Albuquerque could formalize things like their Neighborhood Watch.
It brings community together. It really does.
They can, a neighborhood association can have a presence on our site. They can have a landing page on our site. Neighbors in the area, they can look for Neighborhood Watch shifts. You could break your Neighborhood Watch down into 4-hour shifts, and you could know in your neighborhood who's watching what, when, who's walking the beat.
You got it. That's it,
at a particular time. Yeah. So neighborhood associations, we're not there yet, but I want to be there.
And have a monthly barbecue and they all get together. I mean, really, it's I've seen it work.
That kind of informal volunteering, that's what builds community. That's what creates a sense of place. Sure. So we're always happy to support that.
All right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw in that first of all, I want you to share with the police department, with everybody, that we are on your team. Yes. We want to have this, not only our community, and you're representing Albuquerque, but any community, to be a safe place